Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. It's a new week, which means we're doing a new theme, and got a bit of a surprise for you guys. It's actually going to be a double week theme. We're going to be checking out old versus new, which is where we look at a band and check out a song from the beginning of their career and the end of their career, specifically looking for bands that have changed or evolved over the time, between these releases. I'm really aiming for large deviations rather than small growths or maybe honing a craft. Looking for bands that really changed over time. So I'm hoping that we're going to get to look through a bunch of those. I think the best way to go about doing that is to do the old and the new back to back. So today we're going to be looking at Opeth's Forest of October. Tomorrow we'll be looking at an Opeth song that is more recent. What this means is that we will do 6 days first, which means we'll go over into Saturday. Special selections will be Sunday and Monday, and then Tuesday through Friday we'll do the last two bands. And then we'll be back on track with usual special selection stuff. All right, let's hop into this now that we've got all that cleared up and out of the way. As I stated, this is Opeth's Forest of October. Yeah, really interesting dyad work right here, creating an unsettling atmosphere. That nice little triplet run in the drums. It's interesting, we had a 4 against 6 idea right there. Yeah, very much in 4/4 here. So I played through the beginning was in 4/4 as well. Just sort of a 6 feel in the guitar line. Yeah, really nice groove right there. Okay. Back to that 6. Well, actually, I'd say it's 4 against 6. Really playing around a lot with that polymeter. Again. there's so many really cool themes that are being presented throughout here. That 4 against 6 is being utilized a lot here included, and they do a lot with dyads as far as guitar melodies. I really like the bass line right here too. It's acting like a variation on the guitar line, but turning it into a bit of a triad in several places. These harsh transitions just between these two concepts of harsh music and softer, more haunting music. I think this is the first time we've heard a section that was deliberately and exclusively in 4/4. And another harsh transition. So I really enjoyed the flow of that solo. It worked within 8-bar phrases that were sort of visible, but still a really interesting flow. I think it worked well. Once again, this soft, haunting idea, contrasting the harsh driving elements. I think a lot of it also has to do, I mean, they're obviously choosing chordal or chords that have these creepier characteristics to them, but there's also a lot of elements going on in their tone and their timbre choices. Like right here, this very wide reverb on this clean guitar. It gives the whole song this like pensive creepiness to it, almost a bit of like an unsettling melancholy. mix is also interesting given how this style of music evolves over the years. Um, Having the vocals so high up in the mix. Again, we're back to use of dyads and 4 against 6. Yeah. Give that bass a chance to shine. It's actually a really beautiful piece of writing right there. With all 3 of those instruments having their own melody and creating a bit of 3-layer counterpoint. I think this is the first time that I feel it is actually in 6/8. But I could be wrong, and we could have just had an extreme tempo drop sticking with the 4. But the tempo's been all over the place too. I was wondering if there was one more section here. Yeah, I was about to say, get into a somber march feel, but the snare is 100%. The snare moved right into a marching beat. Yeah, very cool. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of things that we need to talk about here. So the first thing I want to get into is the recurring themes that we hear throughout this song. I don't really have any overarching idea that's going to tie all this together into a nice theme, so to speak, that brings the whole song together. But these are some really cool compositional techniques that I noticed they were doing a lot. I'm not sure if this is just what they did often on this album in this period of their songwriting, or if it was actually done for a thematic purpose for the lyrics in the song. Kind of ties together the narrative aspects, but they are things that I picked up on. And the first, as I mentioned, is this 4 against 6 idea. It happens way too often, and I believe that what's happening is the majority of the song is in 4/4, but they are extremely fond of triplets. Eighth note triplets, to be exact, is what happens the most most of the time. And what happens is we get two groups of triplets. Well, you get a triplet per beat. So normally you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, but then you also get triplet, 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 and there's your four there. And normally when I feel that, I feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is typically how 6/8 is felt. You have a strong pulse on 1 and 4. And of course, in that idea, you can feel uh, a four pulse within that 6/8 because of how fast those 6/8s are going in the song. So I'm not sure if this is written in 6/8 with a strong emphasis on those pulses, the 1 and the 4, or if this is in 4/4 with a heavy triplet focus. Um, I was quite certain it was in 4/4 because we had that one section around the 9 or 10 minute mark where it was a very clearly 4/4. The triplet feel was gone, and I figured that was the defining moment. That's what's going to tell me the song's in 4/4, and there's this heavy triplet feel throughout. But then, not too far from the end, that entire theory gets blown out of the water, and there is a section that is decidedly very 6/8. It could still be written in 4/4. It could be written with the triplets, but the four pulse feeling is gone. There is only that six pulse. Um, so really, it's up in the air. The song could be doing one of three things. It could be in 4/4 with heavy triplet focus. It could be in 6/8 with heavy accented beat focus, the 1 and the 4, or they could be alternating between these two time signatures as they need them. As I've mentioned before, it really doesn't matter. In the end, the point of the time signature is for the composer to convey to the musician how the song should feel. So the song could be in any three of those, or could be transposed or written specifically by Opeth in any of those styles, and it would not change the sound of the song. But I do want to point that out, that just happens very often. We have this 4 against 6 feel, or 6 against 4, however you want to say that. And either, at least to me, my ears say that they are either very fond of polymeter or they're very fond of triplets. And I'm not sure which one it is, and I'm not sure if maybe that ties into some of the themes of the song. Maybe the Forest of October deals a lot with threes, and that's why they use triplets a lot. I don't know. I did not pick up on any of the lyrics. We'll get into that in a bit. So I'm not sure how any of this ties into the thematic elements that are core to the themes in the lyrics. But it's just very prevalent for me not to have spoken about that. The other thing is dyads. A dyad is simply two notes. Most people are familiar with triads, which is three notes. Power chords are triads. You get your root, your octave, and your fifth. Dyads are simply two notes, and there are so many melodic lines in here that are composed of the two guitars, one running a higher line and one running a lower line. However, their lines are not moving identically. If one person goes up, a half a, oh my God, a half a step, the other person might go up a whole step, or actually a third would probably be a little bit better. Remove some of that dissonance. But they're changing the distance between their notes as they're going along, which changes the emotion that their notes are creating together. And by utilizing various types of emotional sounds, emotional characteristics of these dyads, they can create the sounds that I think are very characteristic to this song, which are this creeping unsettlingness. And I mentioned even like this pensive melancholy element too. Those ideas show up so often in the slower, calmer sections, and those sections are littered with dyads. Even occasionally a triad, but still not messing with that core uh, emotion that they're pulling out of these note combinations. So, like I said, it's very interesting. Dyads are something that I don't think we hear too much in music, well, let me take that back. There are guitar melody lines that we hear often, especially around this era in music, I would say. The 90s were very big about having two guitarists and both of them playing the same line but harmonized. But the thing with harmonies is that you're typically keeping the note distance. If you're playing a fifth above the other, the notes are always going to be a fifth above, plus or minus a flat or sharp to ensure intonation and keeping with the elements that you want. Sometimes you can't get a perfect fifth up while staying within the chord, within the key. So it's usually keeping the same sound throughout, though, which is a perfect harmonization. This changes the note distances with each note that comes up. Every note that they move to could have a different distance on it, and we typically call those dyads. Although it is technically harmony. They just change the distance between the notes throughout their harmonies. And like I said, it's just not something I've seen too much on this channel in the rock and metal. Typically, we see these perfect harmonies that retain distance. So I really like that. It gives it a little bit of a classical flair. I'd say it's kind of the only part of the song that really felt classical. I'm not sure if they're classically inspired or maybe that was just something that they like to do. Maybe they heard someone else do it and they copied it. I would not say that necessarily from this one piece. I would infer that anybody in the band was classically trained. They could be, but I'm not going to infer that from this one idea. But it is something that I've heard a lot more in classical than I have heard in rock and metal. So that's really cool to see it show up. Those are the two real strong elements that I felt in the composition itself. They show up everywhere and they are very cool, actually. We've heard some polymeter before and I always enjoy it, but I think this is one of the few times where the polymeter stands out to me but isn't distracting. Usually, if it is just very present, like it is here, I could not hear the triplets against, the straight four or, vice versa, those heavy downbeats against the 6/8. Um, but they never really took me out of the groove. Usually when the polymeter's present, it takes me out of the groove. And I really appreciate the skill it took to create this specific sound in this song. Where, like I said, it is very present but not distracting. Another thing I want to check out though is soft versus heavy. They move between these two ideas rapidly. We have these really harsh growling moments with the distorted guitars, and then they move into these more pensive, melancholic sections. But there's never a smooth transition. I take that back. There was one smooth transition. We went from soft to heavy, and the soft was holding out these whole notes, and while it was holding out the whole notes, the other guitar came in and started with the distorted guitar line that they were going to utilize and brought that in from the side. The other guitarist held the whole note, and then joined in and harmonized with the guitar, and the drums came in not too long after that. I think that was the smoothest transition we had. And it provided these, I don't know, 3-4 bars between the ideas of allowing sort of a crossfade idea where we started to see the next idea, the harsh elements come in and played on top of the calmer elements before they came together and went all harsh. Other than that, they were very immediate. We would be going real heavy and then the beginning of the next bar, bam, we're just quiet. We could be in this very thoughtful, pensful area, a little bit of suspense and instability, really hanging on with some ideas of something creeping underneath the surface. And then out of nowhere, the next bar comes up and we are just, face melting metal again. And I'm not sure, again, how this fits into any of the themes of the song, any of the lyrical themes that are going on, but it happens so often that it feels like it must mean something. Unless, of course, it is just their style of playing. I have not listened to this whole album, and I'm not sure how these themes are replicated or shown throughout the rest of their works, but it's very prominent here. But on another note, taking that same idea of soft versus heavy, moving from these super harsh ideas into these more calmer, thought out, pensive sections. There's also this idea that I felt about breathing and rushing. I continue to say that the softer sections are calmer. There's a pensiveness about them. It's more laid back and withdrawn and allowed to take its time to present its ideas. There's at least two of those slower sections that are given time to breathe and explore the atmosphere. It's not even has to do with slow burn layering. It really is that they just sit in those pockets for an extended period of time without expanding on it or introducing new ideas. They're just really sitting in that atmosphere and letting the listener soak it in before they move on. However, with the harsh elements, it is just constant drive, constant momentum, constant direction, always going somewhere. There's never really a moment to breathe, and it is this dichotomy just shifting back and forth on a dime. You never know what's going to happen. The song feels bipolar. Any second, it can go from rushing and manic to withdrawn and pensive and calculating, and just flips between these two so fast, so rapidly, so immediately. There's only, like I said, there's only one transition that was very smooth. And between that and this idea of mixed meter, never really knowing what time signature we're in, constantly feeling both of them, I'm getting these ideas of, uh, like I said, sort of bipolar or mixed personality, some sort of concept of duality and moving between these two ideas or two personalities or two concepts. Um, just this overall idea of duality. It does remind me, actually, thinking about this, a huge callback to like a year and a half ago when I started the channel, when we checked out um, Pisces by Ginger. And it does a lot of these same ideas, where we get these hyper layered, beautiful, pensive, almost melancholic, slow sections butted right up against the really harsh, growling, driving sections. And the song mixes between the two. And of course, that song is about the astrological sign of Pisces and sort of the concepts of what that personality is, the two sides of the same coin idea. And I can't help but notice the parallels here now that I'm thinking about it, especially given that I believe I've seen the band is inspired by Opeth. I think. I'm like 60% certain I heard that in an interview somewhere along the line. Um, and it's just, like I said, I don't. Forest of October is the only thing I have to go by on a lyrical sense here because I just could not pick up the vocals. But this idea of duality and the structure of the song matching a band that was possibly inspired by this one. There's just a lot of coincidences going on here for me to think that I'm not on the right track. Speaking about the vocals, though, this is completely outside the composition. This is more about the mix, but it intrigues me. This feels in a sort of way of uh, death metal in some vein. A little bit more melodic, a little bit more progressive, but it still has the harsh elements are still very death metal. And specifically speaking, I want to talk about the vocals, which primarily appeared in the metal sections, the harsher elements. Um, but it's mixed very high. It is very clearly heard. It's not pushed down into the mix. It's not muddied. I don't feel like those growls are necessarily another texture in the wall of sound that's going on. In fact, they don't really operate within that wall of sound idea at all. And I know that this was, assuming this is correct, 1995. So, I mean, we're talking about quite a long ways before a lot of these mixing ideas that I'm talking about have started to really become popularized within their specific genres. But it does sound very interesting to me, having heard a lot of what came after this and the way that all that's mixed, how the vocals are typically pushed down a little bit and not given that spotlight. That's typically how I hear growls in a lot of the music that we've checked out with growling in it. And moving to this is just, like I said, it's interesting. It intrigues me. It is completely opposite of what I expect a growler to be mixed into the music. This is given prominence. This is given spotlight. The growling seems to be mixed as if they were any other singer, whether they were singing clean or clean distorted or, fries. They are given that prominence. And yeah, like I said, not really having anything to do with the composition. It just interests me because it is just not what I expect from this style of music. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything I had to say, and everything that kind of piqued my interest throughout the song. But let me know in the comments how close I am on this concept of duality. Specifically, this concept of possibly into not necessarily just duality, but extreme opposite ends of whatever the duality is. The two aspects in this song could not be more different. They're both going for completely different elements. They have completely different drives. They have completely different um, atmospheres and emotions and styles. It's just, I'm really sure I'm on to something here, but I don't know. That's where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if I'm close on that. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that might have stuck with you or bounced off of you, or something that stuck out to you and I didn't pick up on. Go ahead and put that down there. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a link for Linktree in there, which is super nifty. It puts everything related to the channel in a nice menu. You can find the Discord, you can find the Twitter, you can find the Patreon if you'd like to help support the channel through that. It's just, like I said, a very nifty resource. Above that, you can like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with the newer Opeth song that we're going to do a lot of compare. We're going to do a bit of compare and contrast to this one while also analyzing it on its own merits. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.